Hello everyone. So in a previous video I showed how to derive the quadratic formula from the definition of a quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. So in that video I used completing the square of this to get this. And I'll link to that up here and down in the description below. So let's get right to it and see what's involved in using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. So the first one I'm going to do is going to be 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. What we want to do is we want to put in numbers for our b's, a's, and our c's. So what we have is our A, B, and C value. And when you plug in a number, don't forget to carry its sign. So that'll be positive, and 5 will be negative. All right, let's get right to it. X equals negative B, which is 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 3 squared, minus 4, a is 2, and our c is negative 5. All of this over 2 times a, which is 2. Okay, so then at this point, all it is algebra to solve it. So what we're going to get is x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root, 3 squared is 9, minus 2 negatives, so that's going to actually be a positive. So what we get is 20, or 40. All of that over 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? Now let's keep on going. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root. 40 plus 9 is 49 over 4. All right. Now the square root of 49 is 7. So we get x equals negative 3 plus or minus 7 over 4. We can take this and make it so it says x equals negative 3 over 4 plus or minus 7 over 4. And then if we just solve this, we end up with x equals 1 and negative 5 over 2. And those are our x-intercepts for that quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. All right. So let me erase this and we'll work on the next one. So the next one I'm going to do is going to be 3x squared plus 4x minus 6 equals 0. Again, we have our A term, our B term, and our C term. And again, don't forget to bring the signs when you plug it in to the formula. So we have x equals negative b, which is 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4 squared, minus 4a, which is 3, c, which is negative 6. All of that over 2 times a, which is 3. And again, at this point, all we got to do is solve it. So we get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus, because we have 2 negative signs, it's going to be a plus, and that is 72 all over 6, like that. Now we're going to add what's in the square root. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root, 72 plus 16 is 88 over 6. Bring this up here. So now we've got x equals -4 plus or minus, well, we can break up the square root so that we have 4 times 22, so that would equal 88 over 6. We got x equals -4. The square root of 2 is 2, and 22 remains a square root over 6. Then we can split this up, -4 over 6 plus or minus 2 square roots of 22 over 6. That's 2, that becomes a 3, that goes away, that becomes a 3. So now we got x equals -2 over 3 plus or minus the square root of 22 over 3. So really, our answer at this point, because I don't feel like, actually typing into my calculator -2/3 plus square root of 22 over 33 to get a decimal approximation. So we'll just put this back together. Gives us x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 22 over 3. And that is our answer for our x-intercepts. And you do -2 plus square roots of 22 over 3, and then -2 minus square roots of 22 over 3, and those would give you your 2 answers for x. Now, the quadratic formula is great because it can be used to solve any quadratic equation. So if you can't factor and you can't complete the square, then you can definitely solve it using the quadratic formula. It might not be the prettiest answer, but it'll always get you an answer. Like at the end here, we got the square root still in our answer, but we got an answer. So let's move on to the next one. The next one I'm going to do is going to give us an answer with the letter I in it, the imaginary number. If you haven't had experience with that, don't worry too much. This is just an example if anybody wants to see what that looks like. This will be the last one I do in this video. So we have 4x squared minus x plus 4 equals 0. Again, like before, we got our a, our b term, which is -1, and c. Again, let's just plug this in, plug and chug. X equals -1 plus or minus the square root of -1 squared minus 4. A is 4 and c is also 4. All of that over 2 times 4, like so. 2 negatives is a positive, so x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of -1 squared is a positive 1. That's going to have a negative sign, and that is going to give us 64. All of that over 8. So now we got x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of -63 over 8. Now we can separate this into a 9 times -7. X equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 9 times -7 over 8. So we'll move up here. So we got x equals 1 plus or minus, well, the square root of 9 is 3. And then we still have -7 in there over 8. Now to get rid of the negative sign in here, we're going to pull out an I. Okay? So we get x equals 1 plus or minus 3i square roots of 7 over 8. So our 2 answers are x equals 1 plus 3i square roots of 7 over 8 and 1 minus 3i square roots of 7 over 8. And those are our x-intercepts for that quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. So that's it. That's all I have for you in this video. Hopefully that helps you use the quadratic formula. Like I've said before, the quadratic formula can be used with any quadratic equation, but I always recommend trying to either factor or complete the square first. If you look at it and you know for a fact you won't be able to do either one of those, then using the quadratic formula will always work. So, good luck, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.